Welcome to the Clinical Current, where science meets strategy and innovation drives impact. I'm your host, Teresa Hines with Ascendia Clinical, and I'm so glad that you're joining us. Today marks the first episode in our special three-part series exploring one of the most transformative forces shaping the future of our industry, artificial intelligence in pharma. This episode is titled Molecules and Machines, the AI Pharma Revolution, and we're diving into the real-world experiences, challenges, and opportunities that AI is bringing to clinical operations, regulatory strategy, and beyond. I'm thrilled to welcome our first guest today, Kelly Roland, a forward-thinking leader in this space who brings both strategic insight as well as hands-on experience in AI adoption across life sciences. With over 20 years of experience in clinical trial management and operations, Kelly has built a distinguished career rooted in innovation, operational excellence, and forward-thinking strategy within the healthcare sector. She currently serves as co-founder and chief operations officer at TrialGenesis, which is an emerging AI-driven enterprise focused on driving transformative solutions at the intersection of technology and clinical innovation. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me, Teresa. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we go back many years, I would say about 10,
Yes.
where we were both at a pharma company that I would say was highly focused on innovation. Of course, in
Yes.
addition to clinical trial management and clinical trial execution, we were both heavily involved in the early days of DCT adoption.
Yes.
Where clinical teams were kind of kicking and screaming that they didn't necessarily want to do it, and look where we're at now.
Right.
So I was thinking about that in preparation for today, and how it's very similar to AI. I think we're kind of where the early DCT days were maybe 10 years ago. I'm thinking that is where AI is now, and I would love just to get your take on that.
No, absolutely. So you're right. This is a really exciting time, I think, for pharma, for the world, really, for humanity. There's so many elements of AI that really can accelerate all the ways in which we live, which we work. And you're right. I think, as far as my DNA is concerned, I've been on the cutting edge of technology. I've always loved it. I've always been driven by it. I've always been excited and exhilarated on how can we apply this to our current processes? How can we make things better? How can we align differently? Because at the end of the day, what we're doing here in the pharmaceutical industry is to get drugs to patients faster. And that is who, gets me out of bed every day, is really thinking about the patient at the end of the day. And so, yes, there are ways to optimize processes within companies and businesses. But at the end of the day, I think of that patient and I think about how we can apply technologies to get us there. And AI is a beautiful tool that I think will really help accelerate that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Along those lines, do you see specific functions that are more ripe for adoption? Within pharma, we have, of course, regulatory, who I think may not necessarily be as ready for adoption. And then we have our tech people of all the different areas. Do you see one that's more ready than another, or any type of pharmaceutical company, big versus small, that's more ready than the other?
Right. So I think I'll say it depends, which is not a great answer, but I'm going to start with AI transformation with, let's say, site selection. So there are several big pharma companies that are actually using AI right now to analyze data from clinical trials and sites, identify those high-performing investigators, and operationalize that feasibility. So I believe it was Novartis. They showed a remarkable improvement of recruitment rates that use this pilot AI tool. It's a really great example of a low risk, high benefit type of way to use AI. Here's the pros and cons with that.
Yeah.
Those bigger pharma companies have a lot of data. So they can train the tools, they can use that data. So there's thousands and thousands of trials that they could utilize for that type of assessment. So in those cases, perfect tool, perfect ability to do that. I think, the con of that is, the folks who don't have as much data to utilize. So they just have to think about it a little differently. It's basically take a look at what area you have a problem in and try to explore, can AI help improve it? Can we enhance our operational flow? Can we enhance our data insights? Can we enhance? So it's not always we should do it. Can we? And then maybe try to find those kind of low risk, high reward type of pilots that people can start to implement and utilize as they go along.
Yeah, that's a great way to start. I think low risk is certainly better than obviously than high risk.
Right.
So you want to make sure that everybody's comfortable, and then you can kind of take baby steps. So you start out with those low risk situations, data that wouldn't necessarily be as private per se, and then take baby steps into the higher risk situations. I'm glad that you brought up Novartis. So I think of Novartis, of course, it's like a big 10 pharmaceutical company. Do you see, and maybe you don't have the answer to this, but for the larger pharma companies, are they typically building in-house teams, or are they subcontracting? Are they bringing it, with consultants such as yourself? Or what do you see in that space? Do you even know in terms of large pharma versus the smaller pharma companies?
Yeah, so I've attended a couple conferences recently to try to get a feel for where some of these companies are. I think the bigger companies have the bigger teams, right? So they have the data sciences teams, and they have the in-house knowledge to at least begin the steps, to at least dip their toe in the water. The smaller companies are more reliant on the consultants, on the tech firms that already have some type of product that they can work with. So I think it really just depends. I think the bigger companies have also used AI companies to help augment or speed up their capabilities as well. So they might have an internal team that might be tasked with implementing AI, but they may not have all the tools, and they may not have all the know-how. And they also may not have the ability to scale quickly. So in those bigger companies, you have many layers, layers of bureaucracy that you don't always have with a smaller AI company or startup or something that can work on something and bring it over and show the team quickly. So I do believe that there are benefits to kind of using both, and it really just depends on the business needs.
You brought something important up about the larger companies, especially. So I think of them, they're multi-layered, and it can be very bureaucratic, which brings me to my next topic about change management. Do you have any thoughts specifically on how best to manage these? Because these are huge changes, for these companies. Maybe not certain people, but some people are not familiar with this, not used to it, not necessarily going to embrace it. So from a change management perspective, do you have any best practices that you would recommend? And what are your thoughts there?
Sure. So a couple different takes from that. So there is the AI is plug and play and out of the box. I would say be very careful there from a change management perspective. AI is only as good as the governance, and to your point, the team around it that's supporting it. Start small, start with small pilots, learn and develop that trust. Trust is everything, right? And so I think there's that piece. I think there are fears that I've heard of AI will take my job. I think it's important to say AI is a collaborator, not a replacement. So you have to have the human in the loop. So let the expert guide the tool, and let the expert then be able to take a step back and think and strategize, and let the tool take up those mundane tasks. I would say, for the skepticism, for the anxiety around AI, it's valid. We welcome it, right? It forces teams to have a conversation. And that's really what you want at the end of the day. Trust is earned, have the conversation, invite AI companies to come in and speak. Bring the team that's resistant. There's always the resistors. There's always the excited folks who want to put it in everything. I'd say it's somewhere in the middle, more of a moderate approach. But share your fears and talk to the AI companies and come to a place where you feel more comfortable. And that's really, I think, where people should really start. Have the conversations, and then start exploring some ideas. Where could we use this tool? What is a low risk, high reward option? And be okay with knowing that maybe that small pilot was not maybe a great fit for AI. at least now you know. So be okay
Exactly.
with the failure of it
Right.
didn't work, and
Yeah.
accepting that as a company as well.
Yeah. I think sometimes that's where you learn the most, right? With
Yes.
anything, with those failures. And I like I didn't even think of that, bringing different teams from, different AI companies in, specifically to talk to those who are going to be resistors, to your point, because they will, pick holes in what you're doing. And that's what you want, right?
Absolutely. It makes you
Because the
stronger.
regulators are coming next. Which brings
Yes.
me to another question, and we were actually just talking about this offline. In terms of the regulations, is the EU really the only regulatory body that you're aware of that has come up with something concrete, if you will? And what can we expect, do you know, from the FDA and other regulatory bodies?
Right. So there are some drafts that exist currently. I believe there's in the US, specifically California and maybe New York, have specific AI
Hmm.
laws that govern those
Sure.
states. The EU AI Act is definitely one that is helping to move us ahead.
Hmm.
I think there's going to be some converging shifts, and there's going to be more
Hmm.
regulation as time goes on. Um, but what was interesting with the EU AI Act is it didn't
Hmm.
just define the tech, it legitimized its use.
Right.
So now it's
Sure.
people should feel confident to say, if they're putting some rules around this, that's great, because now it's not just a free for all. We can now be confident enough to start experimenting with AI, and we
Yeah.
have the support of regulators. So I think
Hmm.
that's important.
That's
Also,
huge.
that's
Yeah.
huge, right? And
Yeah.
and I think the FDA just announced recently
Yeah.
that they're using AI too.
Correct.
They're,
I was just going to
yeah,
mention that. I think for their reviews of,
yes,
the IND and the NDAs,
yes,
they're utilizing it as they should. I mean, as long as you, to your point, have the human in the loop, as long as you don't
yes,
remove that, I think it's only beneficial.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So now that shift is I think moving to the executive teams, right? At the executive level, they're
Hmm.
feeling a little bit more of that pressure now because the doors have been opened.
Yeah.
Here's some guidelines, here's some guidances. We, the FDA, are using it. I think that that's really opening a lot of doors and shifting the mindset from being a kind of watch and see what happens to
Sure.
really moving ahead and saying, okay,
Yeah.
we've got to do something here.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. We actually were just at DIA, Ascendia, and I would say there must have been at least 70 to 80% of the booths literally were AI pieces. And I know we've talked about this a little bit offline. And that wasn't unexpected, but I think actually there were more than I expected. I knew it would be
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
But I think we're at a point, to your point, that the regulatory providers are embracing this as well. There's no turning back. And I think I actually heard a quote recently, and you brought this up about, I think certain people are afraid that AI will take their positions. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think AI will take positions from people that don't use AI, right? So if you're just going to be a
Mm-hmm.
resistor, to your point, you don't want to use it, then you will be left behind. So I think it's learning, having AI literacy, learning how to use it to your advantage. So
Right.
speaking of AI literacy, can you tell me a little bit about AI literacy? I know you've taken a course or multiple courses, I believe, or certifications with respect to AI literacy and how to optimize your prompts. And that could be a whole other segment, but just
Yeah.
in general, what would you say to a person that's really new in this space? They're in a pharmaceutical company, a smaller one that doesn't necessarily have the capability to have, an AI team, for example, but how can they um, educate themselves on their own, really, about how to best optimize these AI prompts, if you will? Do you have any
Sure.
suggestions? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, I think there's a couple ways to think about it. I would
Hmm.
first try to set my mindset that AI is not some disruptive wild card, but a precision tool.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
would I would look at it from two different angles. Are you using it personally for your own
Hmm.
day-to-day activities?
Sure.
If not, start there. Download one of the apps. There's multiple sources out there. There's
Hmm.
Gronk, there's Open AI, which is ChatGPT,
Yep.
there's Claude, there's many different options out there. Some people might even notice that within Microsoft Copilot has
Copilot.
one.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would just start dabbling, start using it.
In low risk situations,
Low
right?
risk,
Personal.
right? Like,
Yeah.
did you know that it can help plan your family vacation?
Sure.
Did you know
Yes.
that, so start in kind of fun ways that aren't really stressful, I would say.
Yeah.
Start there.
To familiarize yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
And then I would just really start looking at, LinkedIn learnings. So for professional standpoint, there's LinkedIn learnings. There's a course called Coursive, Coursiv.
I've seen that one. Yep.
So that's an interesting one because that does teach you how to talk to the AI. So you mentioned the word prompts. So for people who don't really know what that means, there's a way to speak to the AI tools that get the most out of them.
Sure.
So if you use it like a Google and you just type something in, you may not get a great response. And I think people use it that way, or like, this
garbage
tool's
in, garbage out.
Right. I don't, that didn't give me what I wanted. But there's actually a whole science behind the way you speak to it. Prompting. And there's folks now called prompt engineers that make tons of money in these big pharma companies and others and other companies throughout the businesses on how to speak to the AI. So knowing that you can give it a job, you could say, you are an expert travel planner, plan my family's vacation for me. I'm going here. These are the dates, blah, blah, blah. And you would be amazed. So giving it a role, giving it a persona, really changes the output. So play around with it, have some fun. That's really where I would start. I also think as you play around, you find that different tools seem to serve a better purpose. So I also recommend putting a prompt into, or a question into, like a Microsoft Copilot, and then trying it with ChatGPT. You're going to get different results, right? And so I think that's interesting. So for me personally, I use Copilot for more of my business questions. It seems more trained on business, right? Where ChatGPT I use for other things. So I think too, it's okay to kind of play around and see what works. What works, put in different questions, try them out on each, and figure out kind of what works for you.
Works best.
Yeah.
And that's actually a nice segue into Trial Genesis. So different platforms for different applications, and different things work better for different companies and different people. Can you tell me a little bit about what you saw in the market, or what gaps you saw in the market that led you to Trial Genesis? You're a co-founder, as I mentioned. Tell us just a little bit about Trial Genesis and the solutions that it provides to certain companies within the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh yeah, no, sure.
Yeah.
So with Trial Genesis, we ask questions. So we're all about the what if. So what if we could accelerate drug discovery? What if we could eliminate inefficiencies in clinical trials? And AI is a great tool to help merge that. So it's taking that possibility to a reality. The technology has come so far, so fast that it's been challenging even to really keep up with the latest, because it's moving so quickly. And, so this is an exciting time. And as I mentioned earlier, I've always been of the innovator's mindset of how can we do it better? How can we do it faster? How can we improve our patients' lives? How can we improve our own lives? So the technology has finally arrived to be able to do this. So like I said, we really built this with having patients in mind, and really that technology behind it to be able to do it. So we aren't just a tech company, as you probably gathered. We've sat across from the auditors. We've sat at the tables with the teams who are frustrated with the workflows. So we come from pharma, and we know it well. And so that, I think that process empathy that we bring to the table, we get it, right? We get it.
Most people do not love SOPs and processes.
No, right. So that's an area that we felt we would sit down and first try to tackle, because every company has SOPs. Every company has to abide to regulations. So could we, build a tool that helps with that, with that quality assurance angle, create relevant technologies and tools to give that cutting edge innovation to our clients to help move that business forward. So that is one key area where we're really focused in right now. Is process, optimization of processes, oversight of processes. So monitoring and oversight of monitoring and those types of capabilities. So, I mean, I could spend hours talking about all the different things that we're working on, but ultimately it's enabling the teams to solve a problem within their company. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges is people are unsure, how and where do I use AI to solve my problem today? I think that's really where we differentiate ourselves is we understand your problems. We can sit down and talk through them with you and map out a solution that will give you what you need at the end of the day.
Yeah. But so for now, it's really rooted in regulatory, ICHE 6, I'm thinking, and GCP regulations. So you basically, and I'll probably say this, it'll be in layman's terms for sure, but you basically kind of feed the machine with the regulations. Is that kind of how it works? And then you work with the different pharmaceutical companies to optimize their processes or their SOPs or their policies against what you have fed kind of into the AI machine. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So we ingest all the data. That's okay.
That's the word.
From the different regulations, right, and that are publicly available. And so, yes, we have the ability to optimize your SOPs, your process flows, your documents even against each other. So it's really, a comparison tool that allows you to have that freedom to be able to say at the end of the day, I am compliant with the current regs, and E6R3, as you just mentioned, was a big rollout. So much manual time and effort went into looking at the current SOP, what needs to be changed for the next SOP. So if you had a tool that did that for you, highlighted that in your SOP and said, here are the sections within this document that now would be compliant if you made these changes.
Very helpful.
You're talking weeks into hours. So it's a real game changer, and it's very exciting to see, but it's also important to note that it's not making the change for the human has to agree.
Correct. Back to the human in the loop. Right.
It's not autonomous, which means goes by itself and does its own thinking. There is a human in that loop. You'll hear that a lot in the future, and that's important. Humans need to be part of this process. You need the expertise because the tools are great, but they're not perfect.
Right.
So they do need the guidance, and they do need the learnings to help them along. Yes.
And theoretically, it should just improve as time goes along and it ingests more data and more information. It should improve and become smarter, especially for that particular organization. If you build it from the ground up there, to your point, it's not just plug and play. You really work with the companies to see what they need to ingest within that instance, right? And you work with them to customize it, really, is what I'm hearing.
So we have, so we use LLMs, which are large language models. So we do use those. And so we have that component, which is like your chat GPTs or whatever. I'm not going to give you our secret sauce, but we have an LLM. LLMs we use, but really where we differentiate is we have trained agents, so that the AI agents are the ones that learn. So we're not necessarily teaching the LLM, we're teaching the agents, and the agents are able to learn from whatever the human's teaching them. And so that, to your point, really allows the company to keep their own IP in their own secure area, right? And the agents learn from the expertise within that organization. So that is really where you can differentiate yourself from other pharma companies, because I think that question comes up a lot too. Is is my data secure? How do I keep my IP?
Yeah, it would be remiss of me not. That was one of the initial comments that I received from certain people when I would speak within the pharmaceutical circles. What about data security? Is this just if we basically upload all of our SOPs into this system? Where are they? Where do they go? How do I know they're secure? So that was definitely a concern. I know I had spoken with some legal folks who tend to be conservative, and that was one of the first questions. It's IP, to your point. So have you had any assessments done? How have you approached that angle to be able to defend your system within the pharmaceutical companies?
Sure. So I think whether you're talking to us or any AI company, you want to make sure that they're using secure frameworks around where the data is stored. So we defer to Amazon AWS.
Mhm.
That is an industry standard tool that has very good security. Most pharma companies, big pharma definitely uses different forms of AWS. So we are locked in there. And I think to the point locked in, there are, in layman's terms, the data for the pharma companies is not leaving the instance that is created for them. So it does not go out to the World Wide Web. It is secured in the way we lock it down. And of course, we could have conversations about that with any tech teams that would love to pick our brains on that. But yes, it is a locked down version. So your data does not leave, it stays. And we use the power of the LLMs to help look through the data, but it doesn't leave. It doesn't
leave that space, if you will.
Doesn't leave the secure
space. I think
space.
that's maybe a common misconception, really. So speaking of myths and misconceptions, I was wondering if you are aware of it. What are the common myths, I guess, about AI that clients or even just your peers believe? Do you see anything out there?
I do. I think, and we might have touched on them a little bit already, which is, AI is an out of the box tool. I would say it's not. I think you really need to customize it to use it well. AI needs to be locked into your company's instance and trained on your procedures and the way you do business. So it's not out of the box. You need some change management around it. AI will take my job. That's another big myth that we hear out there that is not necessarily a truth. I think there are industries that
things are changing, right?
Changing
it changes
for sure.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Embrace the change that is coming. That's my best way forward with that one. But I think it's not replacing jobs. It's definitely a tool to help you to collaborate, help you to do your job
work
better,
more efficiently,
especially in the pharma realm, right? Because that is a level of expertise that is different than maybe some other industries. So AI will change certain industries very much. I would say that this realm, pharma and the likes, is so specialized, is full of subject matter expertise that
we're not maybe as in danger as some, right? Coding, for example.
Right. Exactly.
So in general, have you experienced skepticism? Is it encouraging? When you approach different potential clients? Is it a mixed bag? What are you seeing?
So it's interesting. So I have some companies who are super excited. They're like, I'm all in. Let's go.
Let's go.
There was an article. I want to say maybe it was McKinsey. Don't quote me here, but they talked about being a frontier company, which is really
I've seen that. Yes.
About exploring, getting in there early. The people who get in early are really going to benefit.
Yes.
I believe. I think there's some skepticism. I think there's the early adopters who are all in. There's the folks that are kind of waiting and seeing what happens. But I think the longer you wait and see, the worse it will be for you and your teams, because other pharma is going to surpass you. They're going to move. The folks who move quickly here, learn fast and grow fast in this area, will move very, very quickly and be light years ahead of the folks who wait. So I would say have the skepticism. I think that's healthy. I think it's good. It's good to have a conversation. But I would say those who wait, I'd say get on the train or get run over by it. Honestly.
Yeah. And again, it's reminiscent of the early days in DCT, the decentralized clinical trials, right? I think, even like 7 or 8 years ago, people were still hesitant. And now it's just commonplace. I guess what changed that is the pandemic really accelerated that, as we saw in 2020. I think we were both at the same company then, and it was just, there was so much hesitance before that. It was still really, literally paper ICFs and paper CRFs. And now it's just completely changed. And that was just in the past 5 years. So I think the pandemic really accelerated that and showed everyone that it really can work. So I think of this kind of similarly, except that this will be even, more transformative in so many different aspects. So it's definitely, it's exciting. And I'm really happy for you guys. So this is your first business venture, correct?
Yes. Yes. First.
Yeah.
Yes.
What has that been like? Obviously challenging, I'm sure, but anything that you weren't expecting or anything?
It's a great question. Anything I
Yeah,
was not expecting. I think I envisioned it would be a little more difficult to get people knocking on the door to say I'm
sure.
interested in AI. I
Yeah.
think I was under the impression it would take a lot more work to get people
Persuasion. Yeah.
excited about it with the change
Yeah.
management aspect.
Sure.
But I'm finding that's not the case. So
Yeah.
that's really welcoming. Obviously, as a new venture is emerging, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of excitement around it. And we're that's probably the biggest thing that I thought, wow, this thing is
Yeah.
it's moving.
I think you
It's
really
moving.
got, I mean, the timing couldn't be more perfect, I think, right?
Yes.
I mean, even last year, and maybe this is just me, I was aware of AI, but I feel like it's just, am I right? It's just been in like the past 6 months to a year, for me at least, for the average layperson who wasn't really as involved as you.
Right.
I've noticed an uptick just in the past like 6 months. Did something happen, or was that just like a natural progression that it became more mainstream, or is that just me and I'm behind?
No, I think it's starting, I'm in the same way.
Yeah,
I think we're seeing it a lot more. So, in our social media feeds,
sure.
people are talking about it. You have, our government is saying we're investing 90 gazillion, I don't know if that's what the real term is,
Right.
but
Yeah, yeah,
tons of money into AI, and people are
yeah,
like, what? Let me pay attention to this now. So I
yeah.
think it's everybody's going all in. These company CEOs are
Sure.
making their rounds, and there's a lot of investment and talk. So it's exciting. I think people are starting to utilize it in new ways, and just even word of mouth. It's like,
Sure.
oh, you could use AI to help write your emails that used to take a long time to really sit and think
Correct.
through.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
It's so helpful. So I think the word of mouth and things are catching.
it's just catching.
It's just catching, and it's
Yeah.
going to keep going, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how this all evolves, both personally and professionally,
Sure.
over the next even year. It's going to
Yeah.
look very different than it does now.
Yeah, I agree. So in terms of trial genesis,
Mhm.
do you have a specific, who is your dream client, if you will, right? So is it a smaller, or does it matter because you can scale really easily? I mean, I know you have a group of people, obviously, that's working to develop this tool and make it better, but are you more focused on the large pharmaceutical sponsors, the smaller? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. It
Doesn't
really
matter.
doesn't. No, I think every company should benefit from AI.
Mhm.
And what's nice is, the technology is there to make things more affordable. So
Yeah.
you don't need to be the giant pharma anymore.
That's
to
what I
be
guess
able
I was
to,
getting at. Yeah.
yeah,
To be able to afford it.
something like this, or
Yeah.
to be able to utilize it. So, no, I think this is the perfect time for any company, whether you're a small biotech, whether you're a big pharma, or somewhere in between, even consulting firms
Sure.
or teams of people that could benefit from these tools to help them accelerate their work. I think that there is no perfect anything. I think everybody's game.
Yeah. And I always think of a pilot to start out with. Is that kind of where you're seeing the interest? Start out with a pilot and see if it can scale. Is that
I think
typically the business model?
that's
Yeah.
where a lot of companies are right now. I
Sure,
think
sure.
some are further along than others.
Sure.
Again, I harp on it again. Trust is earned, and I think there's definitely no one wants to there's a lot of risk aversion, and rightly so, especially
Right.
in this industry, right? So I think that getting teams having the conversation, trying the small pilots, seeing where there's that low risk, high reward, and build KPIs around it. So don't just try it out, but I mean,
Sure.
really think it through. What will this deliver at the end of the day? What have we learned from this experience, and where are we going to take it next? Because really, that's what the C-suite is going to be asking at the end of the day. You've done this. Now what? So do we scale it? Do we pivot? Do we do something completely different?
Sure.
So I think it's just being open to that and just trying things out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's certainly, we're very excited about it at Ascendia, as I know you are at Trial Genesis. And it does seem like, especially based on our interactions at DIA, it really just seems like everybody is into it. As they should be. So I think it could be transformative. And I think you came on board right at the right time with it. And it's exciting. So I'll be interested. I know this is one of a 3-part series.
Yes.
So we'll be talking more and over the next couple of months, and I'll be interested to see what Trial Genesis is up to and what further insight that you can provide us. So I appreciate your time, Kelly. It's always great speaking with you. And we will talk very soon.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure. And you're absolutely right. Next time, I hope to bring some real life examples
there we go.
Lessons learned, things that are going on that we can share with the audience.
Awesome. That wraps up our first episode of The Clinical Current, Molecules and Machines, the AI Pharma Revolution. A huge thank you to Kelly Roland for sharing such valuable perspective on where AI is truly making a difference in pharma today. If you found today's conversation helpful, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of our AI series with Kelly, where we'll take a deeper look into implementation frameworks, pilot programs, and what it really takes to move from interest to impact. For more insights and resources, head to ascendiaclinical.com and follow us on LinkedIn. I'm Teresa Hines, and we'll see you next time on The Clinical Current.